Hi there, Traveling Troy here. That back there is my 1998 Chevy Astro van. I bought it in February of 2015. It is currently February of 2021. I've owned that van now for 6 years. I paid for it on day one. Haven't made a car payment in 6 years. I was one of those people that would always have a car, I would trade it in, sell it, and pick more car payments. I loved my car payments. I really didn't. But that van has been paid off now for 6 years, and I've gone without paying a car payment for 6 years, which is easily the longest I've ever gone without making a car payment. But besides a car payment, I also converted this into a little mini RV, and I've been living in that van for 5.5 years. Today I want to take you inside and I want to show you what worked and what didn't work as far as the van build goes, and maybe I'll show you a couple tips and tricks of things I've figured out along the way over the past 6 years. Well, I'm currently at a campsite near the Phoenix, Arizona area, and I have my screen tent set up outside as kind of an office so I can kind of get out of the van and have a place to get out and stretch and do some work without being cooped up in the van all the time. The temperatures have been nice. We're currently in the 70s, mid 70s, and if I didn't have my screen set up, I would typically have this chair swiveled, turned around, and I'd have my little office set up right here using this basically as a desk along with this chair swiveled. But since I have the outside office set up, I don't need to set this little office up. So what I've been doing with the whole craziness of 2020, I've been trying to stock the van up with more supplies, more water, more food, so that I don't have to go into town as much. And that's what this box is for. I have in my front seat, it's filled with like extra supplies so that I can continue to stay out in 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time and not have to go into town too often. Okay, so let's talk about some things that worked and didn't work. First off, the flooring. Initially, we start off with vinyl strips and we place them down and glued them down. Unfortunately, the strips, over time, the heat kind of began to expand, and then there gaps were created in between the strips where dirt was collecting. So what we did instead is we went with one big sheet and we just kind of cut it to fit the floor area, and then we added these little brackets all along to kind of hold it down nicely. Now for the ceiling and walls, we installed these wood planks. They're pine wood planks about 4 inches in width, and they turned out really well. They've been in this van for like 3 years now, and I haven't been in the type of weather where it's snowing for a full month or something, and there's lots of condensation. I haven't had that problem. I've kind of stayed away from those areas. So normally you might see the wood fail if or it's a lot of splitting. Like here's a minor splitting here, and then the worst section is right here. That's the only one where you can kind of see the insulation through there. So that's the only one that's having a problem. So I would say they've turned out really well. During the first couple years of living in my van, I had a 3-gallon water tank that sat in this area, and it had a little water pump, and it kind of sat right below this trash can, and you'd put your cup up here and you'd just press the water pump. That was the system I had before, but it was only 3 gallons. I found that I was always having to refill that container. So what I did instead is I put my toolbox out here, which I was always I used to keep this under my bed. Anytime I needed a wrench or a screwdriver or something, I'd have to reach under my bed and pull this out and get it out, do whatever I'm going to do, and put it back, and put it away. It was a pain. So now I have this easy access toolbox sitting here, and I've got now a 7-gallon tank sitting here. So it's more than twice as much water. It takes up about the same amount of space. I keep my backpack that I use for hiking sitting right here on the other half of it, so I can quickly grab this thing and go on a hike. I keep that there. So this thing is filled. It's all the way up here. I have 2 of these, and I just emptied the first one out using it over the past week. So this one's right at this level. It's got a little less than 7 gallons in it. And I just want to show you what I do now for filling water. I keep it standing up like this because it takes up less room this way than it does tilted down. But it's heavy. It's 7 gallons. So I use my foot to push it there. I slide it, and then now I can fill my water down here. And then you basically grab it, lift it up, push it back in the spot, and then you can release the pressure here. So again, due to what was going on in 2020, I decided to increase the amount of water I carry and food and everything like that, so that I can go for longer periods of time without having to go into a major city. So water, I have a 7 gallon, a 6 gallon, a second 6 gallon, another 7 gallon, and then 2 6 gallons. Okay, so I'm carrying 38 gallons of water. 6 and 6, 12 gallons, that's dedicated to my sink. So 12 gallons dedicated to the sink and 26 gallons dedicated to drinking water. So I can basically stretch it out for 4 weeks, 28 days. So one of the things I suggest you do when you're in the process of building a van, or even after you've completed your van, is to kind of move things around, kind of like how I did with the water container over there. Move things around and see how maybe something will fit better in a different area. Like for instance, I was just kind of moving things around the van, trying to figure out where things, kind of piecing the puzzle together, trying to get things to fit properly, and I just happened to come across this spot that fit this water container perfectly. So this is a 7 gallon water tank. It's currently empty because I just finished using it and replaced it with the other one over there. But this thing, it slides perfectly right in that spot. It definitely wasn't planned at all. What was planned is the bed and the refrigerator. This bed, it slides out and it butts up against this refrigerator. But we had no idea that this would actually fit here, and it's just out of the way perfectly. It just gets out of the way, and it gives me 7 more gallons of water. And another cool thing, that just like I'm saying about putting the puzzle together, something I never would have thought about, my cushions back here, my cushion fits perfectly in between the wall and the refrigerator. So that's like a place where I can kick back and read or watch TV or whatever. And without moving things around and testing things, I would have never realized that fit there perfectly like that. And when the bed is opened all the way to here, you can actually fit 2 people side by side, watching TV or reading or whatever. Pretty slick. So I currently have my lights turned on. I rarely ever use lights during the day because I've got lights coming in from the window. I kind of have a skylight here, and I usually always have at least one back window open. I keep that one closed to help insulate the refrigerator and keep the sun from getting directly on the refrigerator. There it goes. It's going down now. So it goes down the low. I always keep it on the lowest setting right there. And I replace my bigger lights with those. I'd always bump my head on the old ones, and now I don't bump my head on these, and they're working great. Okay, so here's my curtains. Actually have Velcro and magnets in here, and that's how I keep it up against the wall. I usually keep a clip here when I'm driving to keep the curtain out of the way. If I have my windows cracked, it'll kind of start flopping this around. So I keep this here to keep that from happening. And it just kind of tucks in here behind my seat. That's the normal driving position right there. So these are PVC pipes. They're 1/2-inch PVC pipes, and there was a piece of rebar in there. So the way I have it working is I drilled a hole right through here, and then I use my screwdriver to push a screw up in there, and it is screwed into the metal right here, and the piece of rebar is about right here, and it goes all the way down the other side where the other screw is. So these things are very sturdy. They can hold a nice amount of weight because they got the rebar, and same thing on this side. Now, some people have asked in the comments, why didn't I just have a curtain that was split down the middle here to where I can just kind of cut through the center, push it to the sides? Get that question. I've had that question a few times, and there's a definite reason behind the way I did it. So if you'll recall, I use this as an office. I swivel that seat around, and that's where I'll sit facing this direction with my desk pushed up here. Well, if you had a curtain sitting here, you'd have to always have to keep tied up. You have to keep tying it up here to get it out of the way while you're in the office mode. So I just feel like that would be a pain having to do that. And I thought it'd be smarter just to drag it all the way down here completely out of the way to where I can have an office set up here and not be dealing with the curtain. And then also the two converge together. So let me show you how that looks. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of slide these two together. So they kind of come together and meet, and then basically what I do is I clip them up here at the top, and then I clip it again, and then my other clip's back there, but then I'd clip a fourth one right down here, and then that would kind of seal the back of the van to where it basically keeps the light in the back, or it keeps it darker in here for better sleeping, or I can hold heat in here better if I were to turn the heater on, and the cold air it'd be mainly in the cab area. Okay, now let's take a look at my shelving area. If you haven't seen my shelves before, I just have kind of miscellaneous stuff here at the top. All my clothing is here in the middle section. I also have like little beanie hats and things, and then down here is my storage, my food pantry, and at the very bottom level, that is my power center down there. So how do I keep this stuff contained? Well, at first I was just using these are called organized, they're barrier nets from Organized Obi, and they were working fine. The only problem is over time they tend to get a little loose like this. So I have some spices. These are my extra spices and things. If I didn't have this board here, this little barrier, these things would be falling all the time, like when I'm driving. So now that this board's here, it helps keep things from falling. The net is still helpful. This one up here is a big help, but these just over time, things pressing up, they just get really loose. And like the clothing, for instance, I mean, this thing is packed, about as packed as I can get it, so it doesn't handle it on its own. These things would they'd be falling out, so I had to put a bungee cable here to kind of help support, keep things in there. Now, maybe that's my fault that I'm putting too much weight on them, but I mean, the netting is working fine with a little added support. Now, maybe they have some new versions where this is thicker and stronger. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it. Same thing down here. I put an extra one here to keep all these food storage containers in place, because this is just too flimsy. This one's fine, but these are just a little too flimsy to hold things in. Okay, now let's talk about my Fantastic fan. Yes, I still have a Fantastic fan. It's the 1250 model. It's basically all manual. It doesn't have like the rain sensor or anything like that. I know a lot of people have moved over to I think they're Max Air, and there's some other brands as well. But I have a Fantastic fan, and it used to have a vent hood. It was the gray smoke color, I guess, and you would lower it, and it would kind of it would darken it first of all, but then also it would block the rain from coming in. The problem is you had to remember to lower it with this particular model, and sometimes I would open it and forget about it and take off. And I didn't like the idea of possible downpours of rain coming into my van that I spent so much time working on. So I made a change, and I removed the little hood cover that came with the Fantastic fan, and I put my own cover. It's called a Camco vent hood cover, Camco vent hood cover, and you can get them at RV supply places, or you order on Amazon or something like that. But so I put that on there. Now it is open 24/7, always open, unless I decide to. I have a little thing here I can put up here with the Velcro and like cover it to keep it dark in here if I want it, or to stop air from either coming in or going out, like say if it's real cold or something. But it's worked great. I love not having to worry about rain getting in here. I just leave it the same. It always looks the same. I don't have to think about, oh God, I gotta spin this and open it and what. No, I don't have to deal with that anymore. So the Fantastic Fan, and the Fantastic Fan is like one of the first things we installed, and I mean it still works great, you know, no problems. And I always use it to push air out. So basically I have my 2 windows cracked, so right now it's pushing air out through the Camco vent hood cover. It's pushing air out and sucking fresh air in from the windows. That's how I've always set mine up. I never reverse it and bring air in. I mean, rarely ever, I would say. Next up, let's talk about my 12-volt refrigerator. I currently have a cover on top of it. It's a open top. It's a top open refrigerator, so I keep a cover on top to help insulate it. This is just my night clothes outfit, ready to go for when I go to sleep. So I'm going to pull a few things off here. Now typically I would just flip this up and get in there for whatever I need, but since I'm showing the refrigerator off, I'm going to pull it off completely. Okay, so this is a Dometic refrigerator. You know what, honestly, I didn't go look up the information on how big it is, or I didn't do any of that. Just kind of trying to show you that I have a Dometic refrigerator. I keep it at 39 degrees. It can go, I keep it in refrigeration mode only. It does have an option to go with freezer as well, or one or the other, but I do refrigeration only. One cool thing I've realized, a little tip, if you have a magnetic flashlight, here's my flashlight here. If you have a magnetic flashlight, this is magnetized. It took me a while to figure that out, but one day I think I just accidentally stuck it to there. So that's where I keep my 2 flashlights. Of course, I bought the case to go with it to help for insulation. I've had this thing in here now for, you know, 2.5 years or so, 3 years, and everything's working well. Now when I make a run to the grocery store, this thing is completely packed and it barely closes. So it's been a week now and it's half empty now because I've used a week's worth of food basically. Like, let me show you this. This is what I made last night. Oh, by the way, let me show you real quick. One thing I'm doing a lot, cooking wise, is I have a new, and I'll see if I can get it out with one hand. All right, these oats have to come out. I'm using a pressure cooker. So I've been using this a lot to cook my meals. Just about every meal for the past couple months, I've been using this pressure cooker, and I just keep this thing on here to keep it from like scratching up when I'm storing it. So I use a pressure cooker a lot now, and then I just want to show you like my meal last night, what I made. I only make right now like 3 meals with my pressure cooker. I still have a lot to learn on that. But this is just like a pasta meal that I made last night. Oh boy, let me see if I can open it. You know, it's just pasta with some meat and whatever. And I'm going to heat this up tonight. I'll probably add a little sauce in there. Maybe a few more, spice it up a bit, heat it up a bit. But that's what I made last night. And what I love about the pressure cooker, I have a one gas burner stove, camp stove. So it's really hard to do pasta because, well, you got your meat sauce and you got your pasta. You got to kind of cook them separately. But with the pressure cooker, I can combine everything in one and cook it in one pot. So that thing's been pretty fun to use lately. Okay, so I got excited about my pressure cooker there. Back to the refrigerator. Yeah, so I just keep stuff in here. Keep it at 39 degrees. Like I said, I've had it for like 2.5, 3 years. Everything's been working great. The only time I had a problem with it was when my AGM batteries, I now have lithium batteries. So my AGM batteries, they were just beginning to wear out after a few years. So they were going out and they just couldn't keep my refrigerator on all the time because they just weren't holding enough power. So I haven't had any problems with all the refrigerator. It was just power in the refrigerator that I had a problem with at one point. Okay, while we're on cooking, let's talk about the kitchen. kitchen area. Now, I keep my cooktop inside here, and although this is a nice convenient place to store water, it does get in the way of getting the cooking setup out, but that's no big deal. I just kind of move this out of the way, drop this little door down, and this is where I keep my camp stove. It's a one burner camp stove. I can reach in one hand and pull it out of there. And then I keep 3 propane bottles down here, and in the front seat, in the foot area, I keep usually an extra 3 or 4 or even 6 sometimes. These are 1 pound propane bottles, and they just connect right here. Of course, when I'm cooking, I move this stuff out of the way and I use this as my cook service, but so yeah, this is my cooktop. This is a gas one. I've had this thing as long as I've been cooking in this van, and this little stovetop has worked great for me. Now, one thing I would say is this can get bumped really easily, so if it does get bumped and you connect your gas to it, then you're letting out gas immediately. So you always, before you connect your gas, you always want to just make sure it's set to off, because it, like I said, it can get bumped pretty easily and turned on. Mine is very clean right now, you may notice. They can get dirty pretty easily, but I try to keep it clean, and I just recently cleaned it, so it's looking pretty good. It looks brand new almost. If you've seen my previous videos, at one point I had a water pump, a 12-volt water pump, and I would flick a switch under here, and then I'd turn the water on, and the water would just flow. That kind of used up a lot of water, and I went through 2 water pumps. 2 of them went out, and I finally said, you know what, I'm just going to grab a hand pump. And I tell you what, I've had this thing, I don't know, a year now. I have to look and see. That thing's been working great. I have my little soap dispenser here. That thing's working amazingly. I have absolutely no issues with it. So in the back of the van here, very similar to the front area, I have curtains in the back as well. What I like to do with these in the evenings, I kind of did this. This is, kind of crude. It's been taped together, but there are magnets inside the tape, and there's a nice big piece of metal right here. So what I do is I move this over. I let the magnet snap in place on one side, make sure everything's tucked in real good. Grab the other side, and I line up the magnets on top of each other. And then I usually grab a little clip right there to close it off nice and neat. But that right there, it keeps the heat from coming in, and or if it's nighttime, it keeps the light from going out, at least the majority of the light. And then that way, that allows me to close off the whole interior of the van, at least with curtains. And if I were to throw the heater on, then I can, really hold on to a lot of that heat. Let's take a look at my power center here. My dad built this. I do have videos on this that you can go take a look at. These 2 lights blinking right now means that the batteries are full, and they're kind of just being topped off as needed right now. When we initially built the power center, we put a 200-watt inverter in there, and that thing ended up failing. We did cut it out specifically for that size inverters. That's one thing when you build things like this and you build it specifically for one particular item, and that thing goes bad and you want to replace it, and they don't make anything that shape anymore. Well, there's a lot that needs to be done here in order to fit another one in there. So what I did is I used our little jack here, the cigarette lighter jack, and I just added on another little inverter here. And this is still a 200 or maybe 250 watt inverter. And basically, I mainly use it for USB. So these are the cables that I use to charge my phone and my iPad and my internet access devices and things like that. So I've been trying to eliminate anything that uses a 12-volt outlet or a plug or a 120 plug. I've been trying to eliminate everything so that I cut down on how much power I'm using. I'm not having any power issues. I haven't had any power issues. I've always been pretty conservative on the power usage. So I think there's only maybe 1 or 2 things in my van still that even need this plug. I've eliminated so many things. Like my refrigerator is a 12-volt fridge, but I've got it connected directly to my power center, so it doesn't need to use an outlet. Let's see, I think my drone is one thing that the batteries, charging the batteries, it needs that. Okay, well, that's what has worked and what has not worked so far in this van that I've owned now for 6 years and lived in for 5.5 years. It's been a cool journey. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon. Thanks a lot for watching.